Yay!
Oh my God.
Welcome.
Thank you.
This is NiCHE Conversations. This is the first episode of season 6. And I'm Jessica DeWitt, one of the editors here at the Network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I'm lucky to be joined by Gina Brooks and Rachel Bryant. Gina, can you start off by telling us about yourself?
My name's Gina Brooks. I'm from Sidansis, the village of Epahug, inside of the city of Fredericton. I'm an artist, a grandmother, an advocate, and just trying to be with the land.
Wonderful. And Rachel?
Hi, I'm an English professor at the University of New Brunswick in St. John. I'm Rachel Bryant. I've been working with Gina since 2021.
Wonderful. Okay. So in June, we published a piece by both of you. I just realized about 10 minutes ago that I forgot to ask you how to pronounce the word for treaty in this title, but could you tell me for real quick?
Lugutawagan.
Lugutawagan? Okay. So it's called The Stories Come Alive in It, Renewing Lugutawagan in the Waponahki Homelands. And so this is largely a story about restoring a basket together. And so I thought that we could start off by, what is the story behind this basket? What are its origins? And how did you two come into possession of it?
Yeah, I can start that story. One of my cousins has an auction house here in the province. It's about an hour away from where I am in Monaquest or St. John. And I'm always looking at his auction for bookmaking materials or print blocks or old things like that, old tools. And occasionally certain things will come up in the auction that I'll try and get for some of the grandmothers who I know. And so usually when something that's birch bark comes up, I'm thinking of Gina because she works with birch bark quite a bit in her art. And so this basket came up. It was obviously quite beaten up. We had no intention necessarily of restoring it right away. That was something that Gina decided to do once she had the basket. So I got the basket in the auction for $40 or so. Drove to get it, drove to take it to Gina, and then when Gina held it, she decided to restore it. And it was quite beaten up. It was quite dirty, and it had the inside of it had been ripped out, and somebody had lined it with this thick green plastic, which you could see through the outside of it. And then when Gina got it, she kind of took it from there. And Gina, you can speak a little bit more about that restoration.
So my grandfather and my father were basket makers. And so I've always had a passion for basket making. And so through my traditional arts, I always found a lot of the bigger baskets, but never really got to making them. So I've held a lot of them. And one of the things that I did with the birch bark baskets is begin to learn how to make them. And so we don't have a teacher, the land is the teacher. So through all this work, I had been pulling the wrong bark and pulling the wrong root. Through listening and learning, when this basket came, I was prepared for it. And so when Rachel brought it to me, it was pretty beat up, and I was in my secret thought. I was like, "Oh no, what do you want me to do with this?" And so through the humor of it, in my time with the basket, I really took an opportunity to learn about it, but also learning about patience for myself because it's very fragile. Yeah. And the bark is, it takes you back to the land to restore this. You have to have a tree big enough, and you have to be willing to, really address it if you're going to take the skin off it. And so as I went through the land and looking for material to replace this parts of it, I found it very challenging and difficult because of the nature of the environment here in New Brunswick and probably everywhere else too, because we depend on the traditional material of this.
Mm-hmm.
So the restoration took its own process, but it also offered a lot of understanding in how the land was really impacted. So so I think that the relationship that me and Rachel had established is if we touch the basket together, we hold it, we understand things, in the ways that we do, but they collaborate on this understanding of Lugudawagin. So Rachel did the paper, and I did the restoration of the basket. And so what I decided was that I was going to do two trees, two smaller trees, and kind of merge the environmental challenges that we find as traditional artists with baskets this big. So when these baskets were originally made, they were made for the fancy women's hat baskets, and so they would have the big feathers and the fancy trade items that they would have for it. So when we built this, we kept that in mind. So I don't know how far you want me to go. If you want me to reveal what's going on here.
Well, I think we can I think you've touched upon it, but I think maybe we can dive more directly into the second question I had, which was, you say in the article that it can be restored, the basket can be restored, but it could never be reproduced. Like we could never make a basket like this again. And I was wondering if you two could talk about why that is.
Yeah, well, for me personally, because I have to, find the tree, and we have to have the relationship with the land. We're seeing how much impact land has been impacted by, the industry, the government, and their policies.
Yeah.
So when we can't I could reproduce it, but am I willing to harm a tree that big because it's a seed tree as well? And so I kind of scaled things down because we have to make ourselves smaller in terms of what's happening now with the environment. And I don't know if I answer all your questions, so you'll have to ask me things again. And Rachel, me and her, we story braid, so she has to offer something to this too, and we'll kind of go back and forth.
Yeah. Rachel, do you have anything to add about that?
I guess this kind of goes back to the first question as well. But one of the things Gina and I were chatting this morning and just kind of preparing for this and thinking about the basket. And we've really been kind of following the basket around. When the basket showed up in the auction, I got it. When I took it to Gina, she decided to restore it. And then we had certain opportunities that came up. We were invited to give a keynote address. And because we were invited to give a keynote address and it was on the 1761 treaty, Peace and Friendship Treaty, we started thinking about the basket in the context of renewal, because that's a renewal treaty. So we started conceptualizing how the basket could help us tell some of those stories. And then we had an exhibition that we were doing and a symposium presentation we were doing. And so we thought about what the basket could bring to that space, and how the basket could kind of lead us in our prep for those events. And then at those events, we had different experiences with the basket. One was where Gina ended up having to actually pull the basket from an exhibition because some negative things had happened. But then in the conversations around those negative things, we developed some really wonderful relationships with some artists, and that led to another exhibit with the artist Amy Ash. Just not too long ago, this is what we were talking about in the NiCHE piece. So a really wonderful relationship and a really wonderful exhibit experience for Gina with that basket. But the basket's kind of been showing us what to do next when we bring it into these spaces. It kind of shows us what we need to do to prepare. And so it's been a really wonderful experience, again, of just following the basket around for about a year and collecting these stories and having these experiences that are being really led by this basket. And so obviously that's not something that necessarily academics are, really trained to do or used to doing, thinking that way. Like usually we're controlling each moment from one to the next. Whereas in this experience, we've really just been having the basket lead us and again, showing us what the stories are. Another thing that we talk about in terms of why the basket couldn't be recreated is Gina is the founder of a treaty education facility called the Caribou Club in Epahog. And we've used the basket to tell these stories of what this land colonially known as New Brunswick was like when there were caribou here, which was before 1930. And so this basket, which is the 19th century basket, it comes from a time and it carries stories that come from when there were caribou here. And so the land was different then. And so the basket can't be recreated because of the stories that it holds as well, which come from times that just, we kind of just can't get back. Gina, thoughts?
Well, I think that it's important to understand, that because we could create this basket, it doesn't mean that we could recreate. What we're doing is we're recreating the understanding of treaty in historical societies. I mean, me and Rachel do a lot of interactive theater almost by having to explain these in the terms of how people could understand them, receive them, and change themselves through these stories, their understanding. So we do a different approach when we have these baskets. We let people hold them, and the whole atmosphere of things change. So if we could make those small changes in a group of people, I think that really people will want to know more about it and how they could, because one of the things that we find is people don't know what to do. Like, they know Lugutawagan is treaty, but they don't know how to apply it. So I think the relationship that me and Rachel have established is to really make this understanding peaceful. And through my grandfather's canoe, Rachel steers me to these places, and it's full of baskets, and we're going everywhere to teach people. So it's we're here now with this audience and very live. So I think that the basket will take you where it needs to go. And so I think it's been, up and down, and we've paddled really challenging waters, but we could stand in what we know, because it comes from this way of knowing that, Skija note that we need to know this through reconciliation for ourselves. So Rachel's been a very strong treaty partner for me. And I think that she really sets the pace and the strength of the paddle, that if we could do this, that it could make a lot of impact on what reconciliation means, because it's not just a buzzword. It is this direct action about added value, and how the original treaty was between Gluskab and our way of being with this land. And so we had treaty too, and we had that original treaty when we came here and were created. And so these stories are they're just coming alive, because it kind of paddled to us to the Jim Paul stories, and it's exciting to understand them with the maturity of where we've been to where we're going.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, what I'm hearing is that, it can't be recreated in the way that it was. Like, there's so many rich layers of, environmental change, cultural change, violence, that has severed some ways of being with the land, knowing the land, but also this basket as leading you and creating this whole new thing, something new. The really beautiful connections being made, and I just love listening to you talk about your collaboration, your relationship to each other. It's really beautiful. And again, you've kind of touched upon it a bit, and maybe Rachel has more to say about this, because as an historian, I just deal with text all the time. And now as an independent historian, I often can't get to the archives, so I'm just digital text. So the physical dimension of this project just really attracts me because I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. And I liked Rachel's just description of working with the paper and some of the difficulties, etc., with it. So I was wondering if you could just wrap up by talking about how, and you have touched upon it, but like the materiality of this restoration and how this, like the physicalness of it, connects to cultural and environmental paths in a way that other sources may not.
Yeah, I can speak to the paper aspect of it. When Gina had asked me to make the paper out of the old man's beard, that was really challenging for me, as I describe in the NiCHE piece. But I learned so much about plants and materials from making paper with them. I'd never thought about needing, I never thought about the cellulose issue with old man's beard until I tried to make paper with it, and it really didn't go. And I had that issue with the paper always being damp, which I didn't understand. But something that I've learned from working with Gina, I've watched her now for years, how the way that she works with her tools, because one of the things that I always go back to is that she inherited tools from her family and from her teachers and from elders, and she didn't necessarily know what those tools were for. She had to figure out what they were for by trying things, by doing things with the tools and kind of figuring out what the tools were for. And over time, I started to think about the tools I use as an academic, as an English professor, like paper, and what that relationship is, and how I don't really know the materials that I use. There's a lot of disconnection baked into the way that we interact with the materials and the tools that we use as either historians or an English professor. And so I was thinking about, why is that? Why is there so much disconnection between me and my papers and my books? And so I wanted to think more about that, and that's what my research is on now. It's about these questions of paper before the wood pulp paper industry. But again, I learned so much about the materials when I make paper with them. I was just recently making paper with cedar, and it all foamed up when I was making paper with it. And I said, I didn't know cedar was foamy, and I didn't know cedar was very oily. And I was texting another Wolastoqey friend, and I said, I didn't know cedar was oily. And she was like, of course it's oily. Haven't you seen the way it burns? And I was like, well, no, I don't even know what the wood is that I burn. I'm not sure the difference between the cedar or the other wood that I burn. So I didn't notice that, actually. But I'm learning so much about, again, these things, these materials are showing me who they are when I work with them in this way. And that's a way of learning from my tools that I've really learned from Gina, that I got to practice in this collaboration with the old man's beard. And it was challenging, but it taught me a lot about the way I could learn from my tools.
Neat.
And the only other aspect of the restoration that I really had a hand in was the wax seal on the lid of the basket, because Gina gives my children gifts all the time. She had given my children some trade coins, and we had used one of the trade coins for the wax seal that we put on the 1761 treaty.
Gina, anything to add?
I just want to I just want to talk about learning. And so when I look back to find myself as a young woman, I looked at the material culture and I looked at the artists. And so now I look at Rachel and she provides me all these texts and I'm excited. And I'm looking at these things because there's more language in there. It's almost like you're also bringing it back, not bringing it back, but bringing it forward, because there's so much more to what was written, because Skijano, we have this, way of looking at things. Like, we know that the oil is there, where sometimes you would just automatically wouldn't think of that. But I think when you look at academics and traditional artists and what kind of knowledge we could bring forward, but also how we're going to use that knowledge in terms of how we restore the land, because this basket is about restoration And for me, reconciliation, it's
Absolutely.
about finding out who I am through this material culture and looking through some of the older artists, my grandfathers, my stories, you know, the stories that are coming back from the Glue Scup stories, how the land was formed. I mean, we just have so much because we had been, you know, segregated to reservations, and we had cow fences around. So, you know, some of us escaped it. And so we're on the land that, you know, my grandfather, my father, and my uncles went and harvest. I could remember those stories. So this story is about this relationship that I'm reestablishing with the land and with the people that I find, you know, are my kins, my friends, my, you know, really these people who still guide me and teach me about who I am.
Yeah.
And Rachel's a very important part of that. And so I think that if you want to understand what treaty is, just be friendly. Just be friends. You know, have friendship, because it's called peace and friendship. And so I think that, you know, we have a lot more to share, I'm sure. You know, this basket is like magic once I open it, but you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Wow, this is such a beautiful collaboration, such a beautiful project. I've just absolutely adored being here with you two today and talking about this. And yeah, I have so many, yeah, it's just sparking so many thoughts and that I want to think about more and pursue. And also just like the idea of how all of these factors just enrich each other, and ultimately this message of being in relationship with one another, being in good relationship, friendship with each other. Yeah, thank you, Gina and Rachel, for joining me today. This was wonderful.
2 seconds.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, you gonna show us? Ooh.
So this is the trade signature.
Oh, nice.
Treaty. This is the paper, and that the paper still has many more stories. Originally, um, they were made with women's top hats, so I made a medallion hat.
Oh, cool.
And so it's a little person's hat. And so this will be another story in itself. And this is the caribou signature inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is the inside of the basket. And so it's like 2 seams. You'll see 2 seams in here. And it was beat up, but look how beautiful it is.
Wow.
And look how big it is.
Yeah, it actually is bigger than I expected it to be when she picked it up.
Yes.
Cool.
So yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're
That's
very
so
welcome.
awesome. Okay, and it has been an exhibit. Is it going to be anywhere else, or just kind of waiting to see where it takes you? Or
Rachel steers that canoe. I just paddle hard. She says paddle hard.
Yeah, it's home for a little while now, but I'm sure it's not finished showing us what's next. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again for sharing the story on NiCHE, for being here today. I encourage everyone to check out the article. I'll share it around again. And yeah, thanks for being here today. Take care, Gina and Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.